He said in the executive order, as the largest consumer of energy in the U.S. economy, the federal government can and should lead by example when it comes to creating innovative ways to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, increase energy efficiency, conserve water, reduce waste, and use environmentally responsible products and technologies.
Right. So while we're the membrane, we're also kind of the lab. So we have done a tremendous number of projects. Some of them that are going to be, the shovel is going to hit the ground this year, but they have been around trying to refurbish, renovate, and also build new. I was just out in Grand Junction, Colorado, where we have a federal building, historic federal building there. Beautiful little building, houses about 50, 70 people, and on the western slope. And we are launching a project to turn that building into a zero footprint building using geothermal, photovoltaics, smart building technologies. And I think the critical thing about this is that we will be this will be the first building that is on the historic register that will be zero footprint. And I think that's really important because so much of our building stock is already there, both federal and nationally. And so the more we can demonstrate the use of a number of different techniques, the better. This building shows that there is no silver bullet for taking real estate and turning it into zero footprint, but there are ways in which we need to weave together all the knowledge that we have, watch it, measure it, and then take the best and keep running with it. So we're playing with geothermal, photovoltaics, smart systems, and trying to position ourselves as a green proving ground for those kinds of things. And because we're big, and I think President Obama has been particularly astute in understanding that we're a strategic asset to the government in this respect. We have a real role to play in pulling forward and demonstrating. Well, there are a number of things that we can do. We can say we will source, or we will credential businesses to be on our schedules, which is like our big catalog, if they meet certain criteria. So we could tag them. We could tag organizations in certain ways. We could say they're sort of greener or not greener, whatever that means. And greenhouse gas emissions is one way in which industry is beginning to wrestle with that. How do they demonstrate that they're responsible energy consumers? So that's why talking to large organizations about greenhouse gas emissions was one lever we were exploring to pull. I mean, I came out of a large global organization that was already beginning to do this, and it was beginning to wrestle internally with how we do this because Australia had already put this on us when I was in this corporation, this demand on us. So internally, that work was beginning to shake through. It was beginning to be something that they were paying attention to. But small business had not had that kind of challenge and had not engaged in much best practicing or conversation about how to do that. So again, it's kind of a facilitation role as much as an absolute, these are the gateway criteria that will get you on the schedules, which is sort of our biggest hammer. Mm-hmm. So we're trying to find a balance. Well, it's very interesting. There are so many signals that you can send about what the government values. And for example, if you were to get onto our GSA Advantage, which is our website for getting closer to our products, we could make the default the green items so that you first see green options, sustainable products, and so on. But again, who sets that label, and how do we put that toggle switch into the system? And that, I think, is, I often think that we're where Detroit was in 1910. We didn't know which diesel engine, which crankshaft, which gears and pulleys were going to be the things that were going to hold forth in the final designs of our engines. And we're kind of in that situation now. There's a lot of flux. I think we can put money on certain things, and then we learn something, and we can find that we need to move. So we want to be very careful in putting labels out there until we've had a full conversation with industry and across the government about what we know. So we're not steering in the wrong direction or going after a silver bullet when actually it's a full portfolio of things that need to be done. And I have to say, it is a very interesting kabuki that we have to do here. It's like, we can kind of talk to you, but we kind of can't talk to only one of you, that sort of thing. Fairness and innovation is kind of an interesting, How do you do that? Help me with this, please. Somebody give me some better ideas about it. Now, of course, we don't know how to get to zero environmental footprint. Why would you put out a goal that you know how to do? I mean, if you know how to do it, you should be doing it. So it's very much like President Kennedy talking about the moonshot. I mean, I don't mean to be grandiose or anything, but, you know, let's go for it. I mean, why are we sitting around? So when he said put a man on the moon and then bring him safely home, you know, the safety and security piece of it, he was challenging the nation to something that we didn't know how to do at the time. And I think there's only one way to stretch, and that is to stretch. But more importantly, we have learned over the last 30 years, and this is industry's gift to the country, we have learned how to set huge goals that function as pull metrics: total quality, total safety. These kinds of things where industry took on, and when you set a goal like that for an organization, you then reverse engineer through all your processes, through all your training, through all of your decision making, so that you can turn out the perfect engine, or you can always have the coal miner going home to his family every night. Those are that notion and how to run our businesses in that North Star kind of notion. That's what zero environmental footprint's all about. Set a big goal, and then we can start reverse engineering everything, how we choose and make our decisions, what we buy, what we use, what we do personally, and what we do as an organization. So that's the reason we jumped on it.
Hi, Ms. Johnson. Jim Loving with IBM. I just actually wanted to comment on your question. First, thank you for your leadership. You asked about this fairness and innovation.
Yes.
And you mentioned you were talking to Canada, your counterpart. Something they did in the 90s, which the U.S. government did a couple times, you may want to consider, is this common purpose procurement. You've set your moonshot. You've said we are seeking innovators that want to take us. Another term for that is best value. In other words, it's fair. The field for those that would help you meet your vision are those that are demonstrating innovation. A suggestion.
You know, one of the wonderful things about GSA is because we're sort of the catch-all in the government, we get all kinds of assignments. One of the assignments we have is to do a lot of the collaborative technology work. So I have a whole office that is playing with this notion of how do you do challenges. And the private sector is racing away on this, and I got to be part of that when I was in the private sector. Bringing that into government is wonderful. And we're exploring in fact, we're trying to figure out how to do some launches fairly soon of very explicit challenges from GSA. But this is a capacity that we have now negotiated and figured out so the government can use. And this is not a technology issue. This is a legal, security, open government issue, which is much more difficult. Sorry to all the IT people. It's just the next step of complexity we need to work through. So yes, I think we should do some really interesting things going forward in challenging everyone to come together around value and innovation of services. I think it galvanized people. We have managed to recruit and bring in talent that we would never have been able to get before. Remember, the government spreads some 40 years of experience. We have people in the government that have been there 35, 40 years. We have people in very different phases in their careers. There's a lot to go through in terms of people really understanding how this is embedded. Also, I'm a political leader, which means they're saying, we'll just wait until you're done and then we'll move on. So there's all kinds of recalcitrance in the system, but I don't think that that's going to, first of all, I don't pay attention to it. In a change distribution, you go for the early adopters and the people that are ready to go. You don't sit around and worry about the laggards. You just can't. You just can't spend your energy there. But, and there are plenty of enthusiasts. So that's one thing. The systems are coming into place. I mean, the sustainability expectation from the White House about our plans is rigorous, and we are under a measurement process that now is paying great attention to this. And frankly, the budget crunch is going to be helpful for us in this respect, because you're not going to be able to travel. Well, if you're not going to be able to travel, you should track it in terms of budget and in terms of, energy savings. And those kinds of counters and that kind of thinking is beginning to be embedded. So, so there are some sort of orthogonal opportunities coming at us around reinforcing how sustainability is important. Now, I want you to understand I use a phrase, and I want to be careful about this phrase. One of the things about sustainability in the government, which is so beautiful, is that it really, in many ways, talks about no waste. That's government language. It's not the language I would use if I were sloganizing this in any other setting.